This is unreal.
The weather, an uncontrollable force, giving us life and taking it away. As our planet heats up, the weather is getting more extreme.
Guys, we've got cars floating again.
More terrifying.
Avalanche! Avalanche!
And even more catastrophic.
If you're the praying type, please just pray for us, because this is really scary.
With incredible self-shot footage.
I thought Titanic came into my head.
From the front line of fear.
The biggest challenge we have is going against Mother Nature.
It's an extremely challenging environment.
We witness firsthand
what I was feeling was burning from inside out.
the wrath of Mother Nature.
I was saying everything's going to be okay, even though in my head I knew that was a lie.
I'm getting out of here.
It's like your brain doesn't understand what you're seeing.
From twisted tales of terror.
I don't want to die in my store.
Death was right around the corner.
Earth-shattering natural disasters.
It's an earthquake.
You're dicing with danger. If you're on their way, you die.
And stories of sheer destruction.
Oh my God!
It's all gone.
It looks like World War II.
We meet the people who've stared death in the face.
We're not going to get out of this alive.
And survived the full force of the world's deadliest weather.
Really kicking our ass.
Coming up in this episode. In Guatemala, a deadly volcano eruption unleashes hell.
The atmosphere around was too hot. It was like a nightmare.
As people desperately scramble for safety.
Sentí miedo, nos cubrió por completamente una nube.
On a highway in Arkansas, a tornado terrorizes drivers.
I just remember thinking, we may not make it out of this.
And a routine training exercise becomes a daring rescue mission for the HMS Coast Guard.
He'd frozen into place. He had a very, very high drop below him.
Volcán de Fuego is one of Central America's most active volcanoes. Overlooking the Guatemalan city of Antigua, the iconic landmark produces frequent low-level eruptions and is a popular tourist destination. Nestled at the foot of Fuego is Hotel La Reunion, a luxury golf resort managed by Evelyn Ordonez.
It was a beautiful resort, icon for the tourism in Guatemala. Part of the show of the volcano was daily explosions. You want to take a nice picture with the volcano on the back. Gorgeous.
But being so close to an active volcano means that Evelyn and her staff must stay vigilant.
On several occasions, we had strong eruptions where we had to evacuate.
It's June 2018, and local mountain guide Jorge Luis Altuve is approaching Fuego's summit when he realizes something feels different.
Estábamos apenas a 700 metros del cráter del volcán, o sea, era bastante cerca, bastante fuerte la actividad del volcán. Se sentía hasta cierto punto el olor al azufre.
Suddenly, Volcán de Fuego violently erupts, unleashing a searing hot mass of ash, lava, and toxic fumes. The deadly cloud shoots 6 miles into the sky. Jorge and the rest of the group are forced to run for their lives.
Y el volcán tiene una pendiente muy elevada. El riesgo era correr a medianoche prácticamente, está tan oscuro y con la lluvia.
Oye, sí, todo bien.
At the foot of the volcano, hotel manager Evelyn is realizing to her horror that this eruption is different and far more deadly.
The atmosphere around was too hot. So that gave me a line that definitely was not a normal eruption. On that moment that we decided to start the evacuation protocol and activate the searing.
Back up the mountain, Jorge and the others are desperately descending through the smoke-filled darkness.
Nos estaba cubriendo la nube y nos estaban cayendo piedras. Empezó a caernos arena que nos causó problemas de la vista y luego nos empezaron a caer piedras que dolían. No se miraba nada. Nos caímos en varias ocasiones al bajar corriendo un volcán. Pero por más que corras, no puedes evitar que te cubra.
Gathering speed, the deadly, unstoppable ash cloud is sweeping towards the city. The hotel directly in its path.
The temperature is extremely hot and the flow comes in a great speed. It was like a nightmare.
Esta vez el volcán se hizo erupción completa. Y hay fuego. Ya tenemos a todos los huéspedes evacuados y al 95% del personal. Solo faltamos el equipo de seguridad. Nos vamos a retirar en este momento.
Evelyn, her guests, and her staff escape just in time as the cloud engulfs the resort. But the towering mass continues on its deadly path, barreling towards villages at speeds of around 50 miles per hour. As rescue workers try to assist terrified locals, they are cut off by the cloud. Among them is Fire Chief Eugenio Chavez Alvarez.
Yo solo le dije conmigo, vámonos, porque ya viene, pues, fuerte.
His colleague is volunteer firefighter Fernando José García.
La ceniza venía hacia nosotros, venía con bastante velocidad. Dimos la vuelta a la ambulancia. Entonces, ya así con un poco de temor, pues, porque no sabíamos qué era lo que estaba pasando.
¡Anda, dale, Chávez! ¡Dale! ¡Dale, Chávez!
En ese momento prácticamente sentí miedo, o sea, pánico. Nos cubrió por completamente una nube.
Later, rescue efforts continue as the police desperately search for survivors buried under the rubble.
La verdad que tal vez uno se queda viendo ahí como aquí porque pasó esto.
And the firemen fight for survival, engulfed in the ashes.
Yo pensé que yo ahí me quedaba, yo ahí me iba a morir.
Search and rescue helicopter teams receive call-outs every single day in the UK, with the brave rescuers battling the elements at their most extreme. One of these workers is winch paramedic Kate Willoughby from Humberside Search and Rescue.
We find that when the weather is at its worst, we can be quite busy for the fact that the bad weather can cause issues. With jobs that involve particularly dangerous environments, then there is definitely a time pressure. So you really want to get the job done as quickly, but as safely as possible.
Working with extreme weather means it's vital the teams are drilled regularly.
On a search and rescue base, we tend to train at least once per shift, and that's to ensure that all our skill sets are up to date.
In March 2019, these skills are pushed to the limit. When the rescue team receives an unusual call while on a training mission in Scotland's Cairngorms. Meet Ben, a 2-year-old Cavachon, pride and joy of Fiona Young.
Daddy's going. Now I'm gonna go.
Ben is a big part of our family. He is my daughter's best friend, and she adores him hugely.
That's my dog. That's my dog. He wanted to come with us.
We always go out for walks up in the woods, and Ben has often been up in the mountains with myself and my husband.
So there's nothing out of the ordinary when Ben sets out with Fiona's husband Ian for a spot of ski touring among the picturesque peaks.
I got sent a photo with Ian and Ben together enjoying the sunshine. It looked like a perfect day to be out ski touring.
But things take a turn for the worse after Ian decides to ski down into a gully.
Ben had decided to try and follow him and then didn't and went back up the gully. Ian had gone back up to see him, and he heard him barking, and the next thing he knew he heard some whimpering, and then there was nothing.
Hours pass and the weather is worsening.
Winds were increasing and he knew he had to get off the mountain, otherwise he would end up stuck. So he phoned me to let me know that he had to come home without Ben, and Ben was lost up in the Cairngorms somewhere.
First thing the next morning, Ian returns to the mountain and manages to locate Ben, stranded on a ledge above the gully.
He found him down at this gully, but just couldn't get to him. The winds at this point were going at 60-70 miles per hour, and the weather was coming in fast, so he knew he had to get off the mountain. That was just devastating for myself and my daughter, who couldn't understand that even though we had found him, that we couldn't reach him.
After a second night in the freezing cold, the chances of Ben surviving are slim. But on the third day, there's a glimmer of hope. During Kate's training exercise in the Cairngorms, the team spot Ben in the snow.
We could see that Ben was sat on a very small ledge on the edge of the cliff. He had a very, very high drop below him of about 200 to 300 feet vertical. He'd frozen into place. He'd been sat for so long you could see he had melted a hole down to the rock, and the snow around him was frozen in like a little wall that surrounded him.
Helicopter rescues can be challenging at the best of times, but add in wild weather and they can be almost impossible. In Slovakia, a climber is marooned halfway up a craggy peak after a falling rock injures her ankle. A rescuer administers first aid at the scene, but airlifting her out is proving problematic due to the howling wind. First, the pilot struggles to keep the chopper steady as the winch is lowered. And even once attached, the wind prevents the pilot from pulling them up safely. So he's forced to leave the lady and her hero dangling precariously until they're safely away from the rock face. In Canada, this man is on a mission to rescue snowboarders stranded in a broken-down cable car.
Get you out of here as quick as you can. Yeah. It's not very warm out there underneath the helicopter, I can tell you that one.
The Alpine adventurers are hoisted in a harness.
Up slow, up slow.
And one by one experience a thrilling, if unexpected, addition to their adventure. But not all helicopter rescues happen at dizzying heights. Here in Sao Paulo, Brazil, a group of hardy heroes are loading a victim, stricken on a stretcher, into a helicopter. Whilst its plucky pilot is skillfully holding it steady despite being bombarded by waves. As they all try to withstand the brutal battering by the elements, the helpers are nearly washed away, but eventually manage to successfully climb aboard the hovering craft. And the injured person is whisked away from medical attention. Back in the Cairngorms, Scotland, and winch paramedic Kate and her team hover above stranded dog Ben. But the narrow ledge isn't the only challenge facing Kate's winchman, Mark.
Normally on a rescue that involves a dog, we use something called a child valise, which is a little bit like a hold all but with a clear plastic lid, which we put the dog in and zip it closed. On this particular day, the turbulence and the downwash from the aircraft was so bad that we deemed it was going to be too dangerous to use that, and therefore Mark elected to do a manual grip recovery, which literally means getting hold of the dog and holding on tight on the way back up. And the worry with an animal, unlike a human where you can explain what you're doing, they don't understand. So the risk of him panicking halfway up, he could possibly have bitten Mark or just wriggled out of his grasp.
Miraculously, Ben makes it safely onto the helicopter and is flown back to base, where the team track down his family and inform them of his rescue.
That is amazing.
I got a message with a video that showed Ben walking around at the Cairngorm Lodge. The relief was just enormous. My daughter is just delighted that she's got her best friend back.
It's a happy ending for Ben, and a valuable lesson for animal owners about underestimating the dangers of bad weather.
Taking pets out onto the mountains, you really have to think about what you're doing. This particular owner did the right thing. He had his dog wearing a thermal jacket, which has actually saved his life. Mother Nature is incredibly unpredictable. Weather patterns can come out of nowhere. A situation that you think is absolutely fine can suddenly turn into something incredibly dangerous.
Still to come. In Guatemala, residents try to outrun the violent volcanic eruption.
Si el carro, por también yo pensé que el carro ya había agarrado fuego.
As it spews deadly gases and burning rocks in their direction.
Nos iban cayendo piedras de tamaño de mi puño.
And holidaymakers on board a cruise want to abandon ship.
At that point, you're just sitting there praying, going, please stop, please stop, please stop.
In Mountainburg, Arkansas, a piercing tornado siren is warning residents that a storm is on its way. But it doesn't cause much concern for Savannah Burgeon.
It's kind of a joke around here that whenever there's really bad weather, people don't take it seriously because there's typically not super severe weather like that in our area.
Scott Michaels also knows the familiar drill all too well.
Once a week, they have sirens go off that just test the thing. So you hear them, you know what they mean. So if a tornado's coming, you usually hear a siren, going off somewhere, and then you start looking around.
So on Friday, April 13th, 2018, when sirens start ringing throughout the state at the end of the working day, it isn't exactly panic stations.
We're all outside, looking around, seeing the clouds, coming across. One of the guys said that there may be one headed up towards the Mountainburg area, and that's where I knew I'd be driving. So I was like, I wonder if I'll get a glimpse of this thing.
As Scott hits the road, Chuck Becker also begins his commute home.
I've been doing that strip of highway for almost 2.5 years now. Normally it's pretty boring. I mean, it's an hour trip, so, you know, it's just back and forth.
But it isn't a normal ride for Savannah, on the highway with her husband Brandon, having purchased a brand new camper van and towing it back home.
We were very excited. We were looking forward to getting it and getting to fill it up with all of our stuff and take it out and have a good time.
As the roads start to get busier with early evening traffic, trouble is brewing overhead.
You could see the clouds were getting darker and darker. And the guy that was riding with me, he looks up and asks me if the clouds normally do that. And like, no, they don't normally do that. So that's when I stopped and started looking myself and noticed that there was rotation, you know, in the clouds.
On the other side of the valley, Scott has also pulled in to get a prime vantage point of the developing spectacle.
I've always thought, you know, if you see the thing coming across or whatever, you know, you can kind of tell what direction it's going, stay out of its way, sit there and watch the thing. And with me, you know, I was kind of looking, trying to find a spot that was open enough where I could, you know, maybe get a glimpse of it, because I've always wanted to see one. And turned around and I was like, dang, you know, there it is.
I think that's a tornado right there.
I saw the funnel, and then it was just all encompassing. And I'm not thinking of anything but, you know, holy crap, that thing is huge just right there in front of me.
Holy cow.
I mean, it was a little scary for sure, you know, because you don't know what's going to happen. You've got this huge thing with all this power just blowing, you know, 40 yards away. So it was exhilarating and definitely kind of scary.
Back on the highway, Chuck continues to wait it out.
Look at this. Oh man, oh man.
The longer that I sat there, the harder the wind started blowing, more debris, you know, started hitting the truck. And then when the major debris field started hitting us, you know, the truck was really rocking and rolling.
Savannah's continuing with her journey, but the couple are fast approaching the danger zone.
The weather went from kind of cloudy into like this darkness, and then it got really loud. I was just like, we've got to get home, like hurry, you know. And that's just when it got scary.
Speed up! Get out of here!
Brandon was having a really hard time holding us in one lane because the wind was so bad and it was just blowing that camper, you know, side to side. So he was just trying to stay straight and not hit any other cars.
Oh my God!
Meanwhile, Scott is in a perilous position, closer to the action than he ever intended to be.
You know, you could feel the truck shaking. At that point, I'm hoping that it just goes by me and leaves me alone. But you don't know what these things are going to do direction-wise.
With Scott far too close for comfort, Savannah and Brandon are moments away from potential catastrophe.
Brandon, I'm scared!
We just kind of were taken side to side by the wind, and then it felt like we were almost grabbed and just pulled.
Brandon's scared!
And that's when we were pulled off the ground.
Brandon, we're gonna die! I love you! I love you!
I just remember for the first time ever thinking, like, it's really bad. Like, we may not make it out of this.
Once it did come to a stop, we both looked at each other and kind of nodded like, let's get out of here.
As Savannah and Brandon crawl from the wreckage after the tornado's devastating peak, the weather finally begins to improve.
It just kind of gradually started fading off. You know, the debris started coming a little less and less, and then the wind started letting up, and then, you know, it was almost like the sun had just poked out. I mean, it just got from dark to light in just a matter of minutes.
The eerily calm conditions allow Savannah to assess the carnage.
The truck was completely upside down and smashed, and the camper was no longer a camper. It was now a flatbed trailer. That's all that was left is the floor. Everything was in a million pieces.
The next day, the chaos caused by the Category 2 storm is evident throughout the region.
It twisted trees, it pulled trees up out of the ground, snapped them off, you know, trunks that are probably 3-4 foot in diameter, just snapped them off, just like they were nothing. Houses, roofs taken off.
Along the 12-mile stretch, at least 150 houses were damaged. And for Scott and Savannah, the shock of facing the storm's wrath still haunts them.
I'm glad I wasn't right where that tree was. You know, if it had come just another 40 yards, I would have been more in the middle of the thing.
Brandon, we're gonna die. I love you. I love you.
Now, whenever I drive and I see intense weather, my first reaction is get to safety as soon as possible. I definitely respect Mother Nature a lot more now than I used to.
When the weather takes a turn for the worse, drivers towing a long load need to be vigilant. On an interstate in Maine, the lorry driver ahead falls victim to the slippery surface. Fortunately, the central reservation wasn't breached, or the huge truck would have been on a direct collision course with several oncoming vehicles. There's no such barrier here, though, and as this driver takes the corner, he needs his wits about him to avoid not one, but two jackknifing juggernauts. Even when the outlook seems more promising, you need to be prepared for anything. Like in sunny South Africa, when a sudden gust dislocates a trailer and sends it careering into an oncoming vehicle. In Ohio, side winds are causing this driver to lose control of his semi-trailer. Battling the blast becomes too much, and fear takes hold as he's flipped over. For the driver, it's a lucky escape. But it shows just how vulnerable even the biggest of vehicles can be when faced with wild weather. Earlier, we witnessed Guatemala's Volcán de Fuego erupt, forming a deadly cloud of ash and lava that thunder towards villages at speeds of around 50 miles per hour, with temperatures of up to 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit. Running for their lives are firefighters Eugenio and Fernando.
Yo solo le dije conmigo, vámonos, porque ya viene, pues, fuerte.
¡Dale, Chávez!
Ya no oíamos nada. Nosotros pensamos que ya estábamos soterrados, porque prácticamente ya no se escuchaba nada, ya no había nada de ruido.
Cuidado, Chávez, cuidado, vámonos despacio porque hay gente.
But fleeing is futile, and within seconds, their vehicle is consumed by the poisonous ash cloud.
Ponele la sirena.
Espérate. Cuando intentamos arrancar, lamentablemente, pues ya no se pudo porque era posiblemente que lo haya arruinado en ese momento, ¿va?
¿Me dices a topar con alguien? No.
Lo que es material volcánica se introdujo en lo que es la entrada del filtro de aire
Tranquilo, tranquilo, suave.
Totalmente obstruyó el paso de oxígeno del motor.
Esto va a bajar.
Yo pensé que yo ahí me quedaba, yo ahí me iba a morir.
The firemen are imprisoned within the monstrous cloud, which is filled with scalding ash and noxious gases.
¿Sabes?
Sí.
¿Y si intentas arrancar?
¿Ya no arrancó?
¿Ya no arrancó?
Adentro, nosotros pues empezó un calor, era mucho la temperatura. Lo que yo hice era únicamente encomendarme a Dios porque no se sabía si íbamos a salir de ahí o ahí nos íbamos a quedar.
Si ya no logramos salir de ahí, si el carro, por también yo pensé que el carro ya había agarrado fuego. Sentimientos, quisiera tener fuerzas, pero ante la naturaleza uno se queda impotente.
As those around them perish, Eugenio and Fernando can only wait, frozen with fear.
Yo pensé en mi familia, qué ellos iban a pensar o cómo iban a llegar a la noticia que yo me iba a morir en ese lugar.
No tenés equipo. ¿Quién me puesto en el equipo? Voy por el equipo. No, qué huevos.
Back at the volcano, burning rocks are raining down on mountain guide Jorge and his group.
Nos iban cayendo piedras de tamaño de mi puño.
No es granizo lo que nos está cayendo, aunque también serviría para eso. Es material piroplástico del volcán de fuego. Están cayendo restos de buen tamaño.
The ash cloud has buried everything in its wake. But mercifully, it's beginning to subside.
Y luego al bajar de la unidad, la escena se miraba completamente gris.
The firefighters are about to witness the full horror of the disaster.
Es un milagro de Dios que nosotros todavía nos quedamos vivos, pero fueron muy poca distancia donde nosotros estábamos, donde enterró a mis más compañeros y a otras personas más a su paso lo que es material volcánico.
As rescuers desperately search for survivors buried in the ash and mud. Responding to the disaster is police officer Francis Rodriguez Vázquez.
La lava entró en las casas, destruyó todo. La verdad que a veces uno se queda viendo ahí como qué pasó aquí, por qué pasó esto. Es difícil para uno porque uno como mando, pues tiene que estar dirigiendo a los alimentos, viendo que lo vayan haciendo bien y que no se le vaya a caer, o que en ese momento no se cayera uno a donde estaba la lava caliente.
Remarkably, out of the devastation comes a glimmer of hope, as news reaches Officer Francis of a baby buried in the rubble.
Ay, tan chula mi niña, por Dios.
Pues cuando me dijeron, hay una niña, me dijeron, muy bien, pasan, entonces ya lo empezaron a pasar.
Miraculously, the tiny baby is pulled out alive, and she is later reunited with her family. Hotel manager Evelyn's quick evacuation also saved lives, but the resort is now buried under a blanket of ash.
The golf course, the green and beautiful grass looks like a black beach with a black sand. Thank goodness we took the correct decision and we decided to get out, because if not, all of them, the 320 people inside, were die.
Volcán de Fuego's eruption was so powerful that it could be seen from space. Entire villages were wiped out, and thousands of displaced residents left homeless. Tragically, nearly 200 people lost their lives. But with hundreds more still missing, the final death toll may never be known.
Para la población en sí, el haber perdido a su familia completa, Es algo que no se puede explicar. Lloramos, e incluso al recordarlo ahorita me conmueve un poco.
As for the survivors living in the shadow of the volcano, their lives may never be the same again.
Le doy gracias a Dios por otra nueva vida que Él me ha regalado, pues porque llegué aún con vida.
Yo le prometí a Dios decir que voy a seguir luchando, que voy a seguir trabajando como bombero para salvar a más vidas, para dar esperanza de vida a otras personas que lo necesiten.
Volví a subir el volcán como un mes y medio después y me infundió más respeto que nunca.
When booking a vacation, one thing at the top of most people's wish list is decent weather. But no matter where you are in the world, that dream getaway might just turn into a nightmare. Like here in Florida, home to Disney World. Yet it is anything but a fairy tale for the folk who fancy a dip in the pool at this resort. As a powerful waterspout erupts.
That's crazy, man.
The shallow end turns into a whirlpool as the violent gust takes the plunge. Some resorts pay a fortune to have wave machines installed, but this one's free of charge, courtesy of Mother Nature. Never mind getting in the pool, these holidaymakers in Moscow can't even enter their hotel, as a windstorm makes a dizzying spectacle of the revolving doors. It may have got them in a spin, but at least there's some decent ventilation. Although you expect Russia to experience such bracing conditions, it's unusual for the popular sunny destination of Tenerife to take such a battering.
Impresionante.
But here, a storm brings the tide in with a force rarely seen in the Atlantic.
Increíble, increíble, increíble.
Luckily, no one was in the way of this wave. But in Brazil, hundreds of beachgoers are about to be taken completely unaware. And with absolutely nowhere to run and no chance of escaping this sudden surge, it's a chilling example of how a powerful gust hitting the open water can cause chaos and destruction. And when you're out at sea and a mighty gale force wind strikes, the terror is tenfold. March 2019, and the gargantuan 20-deck Norwegian Escape is preparing for a voyage from New York to the Bahamas. On board with nearly 4,000 other holidaymakers as the craft heads out into the Atlantic is Michael Patterson.
The conditions were a little rocky. We could definitely feel the swaying of the boat, and we could tell that the water was pretty choppy, but nothing that seemed too much out of the ordinary.
Fellow passengers, limo driver Tony Ciermello and his wife, are also settling in for the first night.
We went out to dinner, went to the casino, we're playing a little bit on the slots.
Everyone was super excited, and with it being the first night, everyone was out on the ship at midnight.
The clock's about to chime 12, but unbeknownst to everyone on board, including the crew, a huge 115-mile-per-hour gust of wind is also about to strike.
The boat was starting to move a little bit. We got a little nervous there, like, wow, you feel that? We're just like looking at each other, like laughing, uh-oh. She said, I'm going upstairs. So she went on her way up, and about 10 minutes later, that's when the wind just hit us and the boat just tilted. Looks like the boat's tipping.
With the ship dangerously knocked off balance, the passengers are beginning to feel disorientated.
We felt a sway start to kind of lean to the left, and the boat did not level out.
Like all the bottles smashing on the bar and all the glasses going and the tables.
We really realized something was wrong when furniture started to move and we heard some screaming start to happen.
As panic levels rise, Michael and his partner's family head for the center of the ship.
You can see us actually leaning against the tilt of the ship as we make our way through the atrium, huddled together. It was almost walking up a really steep incline, almost walking on a hill sideways. We were also maneuvering around stuff that was moving and stuff that had fallen.
With the crews in disarray, Tony tries to investigate the seriousness of the situation.
I ran to the window to take a look outside and see what was going on. It was just total darkness, so I couldn't see. So maybe the boat was on an angle up and I was looking in the sky. I'm not even sure.
This tilt kept going and kept going. I remember looking over to my left out of the windows and almost feeling like I'm looking straight down into water. It was an insane sight.
I just seen one lady on the floor. She was crying. She was like freaking out.
The tilt continues to grow ever more severe, eventually reaching a perilous 45-degree angle.
I really didn't know if the ship was going to stop and what the next steps were going to be. I didn't know if I was going to climb to the top of the ship and, jump off the edge if I had to.
As Michael contemplates the worst-case scenario, Tony is gravely concerned about his wife, now several floors away from him in their cabin.
This is crazy. I literally was ready to die. No idea what's going on. Me and my wife have been together literally all our lives. And I said, wow, we're both going to die separate here. I just really wanted to die with her. That was the worst part about it, was to die separate.
As Tony speeds up the stairs to try and retrieve his wife, the ship bears the brunt of a barrage of wind equivalent to a Category 3 hurricane.
I've never really felt that close to death before. At that point, you're just sitting there praying, going, please stop, please stop, please stop, please stop.
Thankfully, the passengers' prayers are answered, and eventually, the boat levels out. Meanwhile, Tony is reunited with his wife, and they follow instructions about what to do next.
Midship, guys, midship. Go in the midship.
We were sitting in the main atrium for at least a half hour to 45 minutes. And then I think at that point, they announced we can go back to our rooms.
While many retire to their cabins, Michael remains on deck.
After the incident, I had so much adrenaline in my body, I just had to walk it off.
Then returns to the piano bar where he'd been before the impact.
It was pretty insane because in the piano bar, there was seating for probably 80 to 100 people, dozens of tables, and they were all piled up on one side of this bar.
All of these chairs were over here.
I felt really lucky to be okay. Looking around at all the damage, it was pretty incredible that I got out of there without, serious injury.
Thank God we got out of here in time, because that was absolutely insane.
The next day, Norwegian Escape docks in Florida. Several people are treated for minor injuries. But remarkably, the ship remains fully operational and able to continue its journey.
I did manage to enjoy the rest of my cruise. A little nerves the first couple of days, but once I set foot in the Bahamas, I was like, we need to live every moment to the fullest, and it almost made, this vacation even stronger and even better.
The localized wind was later deemed a freak incident and may have been an after effect of Storm Scott, a powerful storm that ravaged the US prior to the cruise.
This is the scariest experience I've had with weather in my life. Never came close to that like I did. And yeah, it was pretty much the worst. We picked a bad time for a cruise.
Mother Nature is a powerful being and you can't control it. You can take precautions, but at the end of the day, she's going to do what she wants.
Mother Nature is a formidable force, so picking a fight with her can be futile. In Texas, USA, this man has the unenviable task of repairing a remarkably long carpet in the middle of a dust storm. Suddenly, Mother Nature pulls the rug out from under him, or in this case, over him. But determined not to be swept under the carpet, he fights his way to freedom. Also in Texas, this ambitious man is trying to clear floodwater from his yard. And come hell or high water, he's determined to do it. It's a gallant effort, but one that's ultimately dead in the water. Finally, in New York, USA, this man is feeling a little snowed under. Huge drifts are hindering his efforts of getting from his house to his car. And whilst he fails to see the funny side, at least it keeps his friend amused. Once again, Mother Nature's taken an unsuspecting victim for a ride, proving that sometimes it's just better to stay indoors. In this episode, we have felt Mother Nature's full fury. We've seen her pummel, pulverize, and prove who's boss.
It was like a nightmare.
And next time, there will be more.
Increíble.
Because deadly weather stops for no one.